Hello and welcome to the D3 podcast. This is your host, Matt, joined as always by Kevin and Sam. How's it going, boys?
Hello, hello.
Surviving.
Yeah.
Surviving, just like the Bucks. The Bucks are trying to survive. I can't say that
Iterate
face.
already.
I'm sorry.
Starting out strong.
Let's say the Rockets are trying to survive. Here's to me praying and hoping that OKC destroys the Rockets. Anyway, it's been a little bit since I've been back on the show, but Sam, I just wanted to say that I very, very much liked your little spiel on the boycott and Black Lives Matter and whatnot. It was really well spoken. Why don't we talk a little bit about what happened afterwards, though? Because there is some significant. I don't necessarily want to say change, but there are some significant takeaways from everything that happened. So, Sam, why don't you help dive into a little bit of that?
I think we all knew. Especially Kevin and I, having lived in Milwaukee, we obviously know about the Kenosha region. We're pretty familiar with that area, and it was a real shame that another individual of our community. I know we can't really say our community, but we lived with it for about 7 years. And it's a real shame that we lost someone like Jacob Blake from, honestly, police brutality at this point. But after hearing that the Bucks did boycott the game, they said they even wanted to forfeit the game, which was honorable. Maybe also throwing some shade at the Orlando Magic, but that's a different story. But it was kind of cool to see that the other teams followed suit. I don't know if it was pure passion for themselves or they just didn't want to get a bad name for themselves. Who knows at that point? But at the end of the day, all the games were canceled for that day and the day afterwards. And believe the next day and Friday, so that Thursday and Friday, there was basically a giant phone call. I want to say like over 250 players were on that phone call. Clearly upset, confused, just didn't know what to do because it felt like with the bubble things were starting to move forward, and then another digression happens. And so there was a big meeting with the league, Adam Silver, the NBPA, obviously Chris Paul and Russell Westbrook with being as the president and VP of the Players Association. It was really key for them. And it was awesome because they were able to reach out to Barack Obama, obviously a key figure towards any change in this country, to be honest. But it was kind of interesting with the phone call because you thought everyone would be together, but there was clearly some sort of divide, when talking about what's the next steps for this. And I think, a big one was LeBron, right? LeBron is the face, so everyone looks to him as, we saw, for example, with the bubble, right? It was kind of saying, Pat Bev said it right at that point. If LeBron says we're going, we're all going at that point. So clearly, as a prominent figure of this league, it was important to have his opinion and his voice matter, but it seemed like it was opposite to a lot of the young bloods in this, on this phone call. And I think LeBron's point was he's all for it. He's all for the plan, or he's all for, making a real stance towards real change. But for him, it was about, is there a plan? For us to just quit, just no playoffs, no money coming in, what do we do next? So for him, it felt like it was a rushed idea, and he wished that the Bucks had maybe organized this beforehand. Obviously, it was more of an emotional response from the Bucks, just, being from that region, that's their state, basically next door to their city. So I know a lot of players were turned off by LeBron, a lot of the vets, even for like Kawhi and them. And in the long run, it was vote 28-2. The two teams, surprisingly, were the Lakers and Clippers for wanting to end the season. Kawhi was pretty adamant as well. For someone that doesn't speak a lot, was pretty adamant about not moving forward with this season. But there were three things that the ownership did agree to. Number one is that they want to establish the social justice coalition to promote, growth in local communities, especially Black communities. How to get registered for voting, kind of stuff like that. Just rebuild these communities again, just during these tough times. Another one was converting these arenas, which I thought was awesome, into like voting registration and voting sites themselves. Because I did hear a lot of reports that most of these owners did not want anything to do with the Black Lives Matter movement. They didn't specify who, but there was a lot of movement towards do we really need these logos on here? Do we need these shirts and stuff like that? And I was like, that's not the point of it, obviously. But it's really cool that as of right now, they have agreed that 30 arenas will be converted into voting centers. So hopefully that will be a big swing coming up this election. So, and the last thing was actual advertising spots for each playoff game, just to raise voter awareness. And I know they want to try to push with some players. So whoever's playing it in the playoffs at that time, they want to have an ad with those players in it. So that'll be really interesting to see. What did you guys take from all of this, to be honest? We'll start with you, Matt.
So the only thing that I'll say about it is essentially that after hearing, I mean, initially I was a little bit bummed when nothing immediately happened afterwards. I think a lot of people overlook how important it is for celebrities, athletes, I guess you could say people in power, because celebrities and athletes are practically in power. But it's really important that they actually voice their opinion and make a stand for something, which is what we were seeing, especially at the boycott from the Bucks. And I understand the want and need for a plan, but I mean, hopefully something good will come out of it. I think that these are some really great stuff that's coming out of it, especially the social justice coalition. One of the biggest issues in our country is the fact that we have a lot of like, what's the word I want to say? Underfunded areas, a lot of, I guess, sketchy areas that should not be in the slightest. And instead of putting all this money into just more weapons for the police to have, you're actually putting a lot of money into people who need it, essentially. Not to mention that this is coming from a lot of people who look up to these NBA players. So having them being like, yeah, I want to do something for these small communities, that's like a huge role model right there, as much as they already are a role model to a lot of people. The voting awareness, that's always great. Converting arenas into voting sites, I think that's very interesting. And I definitely like that move. I'm not entirely sure how well the swing necessarily is going to work as far as the right or left for voting, but making more available places for people to vote is a really big deal. So that's awesome. But all in all, I hope that more comes out of this moving forward. I was all for it when it originally happened, the boycott. I was rooting and cheering. I was just like, so much respect for every single one of these guys for doing this. But so far, I think they're doing a great job. I do think that they do need a plan, like LeBron said, because going into things with pure emotion is not going to help the situation. You gotta take a step back. Yeah, even after like all of the bullshit that's been happening, you still need to take a step back and actually move forward with the plan, or else then everything kind of falls apart. But I like what I'm seeing so far.
For sure. Kevin, you got any last thoughts on this?
No, I agree with pretty much everything that Matt said. And I'm sure you would as well. I think the biggest thing is we just gotta, even as fans, we gotta do what we can to make sure this momentum stays and that we keep putting pressure on the players, on the NBA, on all of these organizations to continue their change and to support the changes they make, to make sure this isn't just something, a one-time thing to satisfy everyone in the moment. And I don't think it is, but I think that responsibility is a little bit on the fans and people, everyone who watches basketball and things like that, to keep up that pressure and keep up that hype.
No, for sure. And I think it really hit hard for me is that when you saw Jamal Murray after game 6, really kind of speechless. I thought he was just breathless at first, but the kid couldn't really talk. He just was just so blown away. Just no matter how much he can do right now on the court, for him it's still not enough. And it's good to have that. I think it's good to have that passion to continue pushing forward. With all these obstacles in your way, that you can still strive and move forward. So, I think you're totally right. I think as fans, I think at least for me, I think I did get lost a little bit at first, just because I was just so excited the basketball was back that sometimes we fail to realize that there's clearly a bigger message on the line. And I know because we don't really have much skin in the game itself, but realistically, it's 50%, right? We're the viewer base. We see all of this, and that's the whole message they want to send, especially from an advertising standpoint. Is that I don't want to see your car ads right now. We want to see ads that actually push towards something.
Yeah.
So it'll be really interesting to see, because I feel like that's where something the NBA was lacking on was, yeah, they gave the platform and that worked for sure, but something that during that dead time, which we have advertisements, they didn't really do a stronger effort towards, pushing for a bigger message out there. So I think with this, new coalition, advertising spots, and even with the new voting arenas, I think that'd be at least a great start, and hopefully that the ownership and players can work together to actually, get these things done. So with that, let's try to get into some lighter news. I know that's some tough stuff to take on, but I think it's really important to address that. So let's just jump into the playoffs right now, boys. I think we all saw it. Game 7, Jazz, Nuggets. You heard me, fans. I'm going to redact all my statements. I said it was the shittiest series. I don't know if you guys agreed right there. Jamal Murray, I see you, Kevin. First 2 games, I think it was the shittiest series, right? Up round 1. Like, I'd rather watch Bucks Magic than Jazz, just because it was just so underwhelming in those first 2 games. But Jamal fucking Murray making statements right here. What was it? 3 straight 40-plus games? I think it was like the first time since Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Like, that's nuts. No one has done that since Kareem. And not even just from a Denver standpoint, but Donovan Mitchell really killing it for the Jazz team, who we also hate on this podcast. Like, I'm not going to lie. We do not love the Jazz. And I think I'm glad that they told me to shut the fuck up, because we were just going to ball out, all right? Because this is just great basketball in the long run. And I think it was really disappointing in Game 7 at first when, Donovan Mitchell left because he had at least a strain in his leg. And I was like, all right, well, this is going to be a boring Game 7. Comes back, Jamal Murray gets injured for a little bit. Game is tied. Probably one of the lowest scoring playoff games in a long time. What was it, like 80-78 at the end of the game?
Yeah, but Denver was up 80 and Jazz had 78.
Exactly. And even that finish, let's be real. If Mike Conley got that, just spun off the rim. It was anyone's series at that point. It was just, once again, like a great battle to just end a series like that, especially going to Game 7. Kevin, what were just your overall thoughts of the series?
I agree with you. I think the first 2 games were underwhelming, and then it just got more intense with every single game. I mean, on both sides, too. Like, we can praise Jamal Murray all we want, but if you don't give respect to Donovan Mitchell, you're doing yourself a disservice. I think he popped off. He really proved himself and showed what he can do in the playoffs. And I think that Game 7, it was a 2-point game at the end that Connolly almost won for them. So it's not like, I can't discredit anything Donovan Mitchell did, especially in that series. One thing, too, that I thought was amazing, both Donovan Mitchell and Jamal Murray broke records in Game 7 for most threes in a playoff series. With their previous record was 32. Going into Game 7, they both had 31 in the series, and both broke it.
That's nuts.
That's stupid. That's stupid good.
No, exactly. And I think we all heard one player that we wanted to step up at the beginning of the season was Donovan Mitchell, because I feel like he is disrespected based off his draft position, but very underwhelming for a guy that was wanting to be nominated as, the Rookie of the Year. So we definitely had high standards for him, especially like comparing him to like a Jason Tatum, where he really had to have his breakout year. And he seemed very, I don't want to say lackluster, but disappointing from, based off whatever expectations that we had. But I think he proved us all wrong that this kid can play in the playoffs. Like, they're a basket away from going to the next round, which is something that Utah never does, like ever in their entire lifespan. Matt, what were your thoughts just on these 2 guys just juggernaut performances?
You know what? I'm really psyched to see how next year turns out with Donovan Mitchell. I was definitely a little bit more nervous about him going into the playoffs just because of the season that he had. I wouldn't necessarily say it was a bad season, but it's just like it definitely wasn't what the Jazz wanted out of him. As far as Jamal Murray goes, I mean, I love him. I love him so much. But you know, they're great. They're fantastic. But why don't we give the Joker some props here, baby? The big white boy, the one who created his own lazy as fuck game. Dude, Jokic had a really fantastic game. He got a double-double, 30 points, 14 rebounds in this last game. I was so nervous to see how Jokic would do just from sure, don't judge a book by its cover, but like he lost so much weight, man. I got scared. But you know what? I think he had a fantastic game. I think most people would agree with that. And I'm psyched to see him and to see more of Jokic, to see more of Jamal Murray, and definitely to see more of Michael Porter Jr. I love that man.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. I'm so excited that I got to see him play. Wow. As far as Denver moving forward, I'm a little bit nervous. That's what I'll say about that.
For sure. And I think going along the lines of Utah real quick, I think we gotta give a quick shout out to Rudy Gooby, our boy, the French Stifle Tower. Phenomenal performance, just especially from a defensive, presence. Game 7 wise, especially, he did shut down Jamal Murray, and they forced Denver to take really bad 3-pointers, which almost cost them the game at that point. With that being said, they are going to offer Mitchell the max extension after this year, coming in October. What does Utah have to do, Kevin, to really step it up now? They fell from the 4th seed to the 6th seed, and it did cost them, the first round. They're not moving forward, year after year after year. What is something they have to do now to move forward?
I think one of the biggest things is honestly figure out how you can get that playoff intensity that we saw from that entire team during the regular season a bit more. I think, like Matt said, that during the regular season, no one was bad, but it wasn't what I think anyone wanted from them. I think there was just maybe it was the chemistry, maybe it was the coaching, I don't know. But I think we saw what they can do when they're firing on all cylinders. So they just got to figure out how to do that regularly. And if they can be, I think, a 3 seed easy. I think they have all the tools. I think maybe they get 1 6-man or something like that. But I think in Mitchell especially, you have a really, really solid player. Rudy Gooby is great with him too, and so I think they have a lot of good tools. They just got to figure out how to use them.
No, exactly, and I think we can't forget that they did lose their boy Bojan Bogdanovic, who was their second leading scorer on the team, to still come back and really almost get close to this really deep Nuggets team. Like this Nuggets team is very stacked, and we've seen that. Like they have 12 men on roster. You got our boy Bol Bol. Hopefully, he gets some minutes soon. Speaking about the lack of confidence, Matt, you did have some concerns with the Nuggets. What are we feeling when it comes to this Nuggets-Clippers matchup coming up?
So you have one of the best defenses in the league in the Clippers. And the thing that concerns me the most is who is going to step up against Kawhi. Because Jokic has he's pretty good on defense. Obviously, he's getting boards, which is all you can, besides the scoring, that's all you can really ask of him. But I don't really see anybody on that team stopping Kawhi from just doing his thing. And I'm not super worried about Paul George because he's kind of been this entire playoffs. Maybe he steps it up. I have no clue, but it's Kawhi that I have the biggest concern for, because while I think Jokic is the star of Denver. He's not necessarily the person that I think about when I say the team Denver Nuggets. Like there are those teams where it's just like the Bucks, Giannis, the Lakers, LeBron. Like it's that easy. And then with the Nuggets, for the most part, it's Jokic, but also it's like, well, that's like Jamal Murray and these guys, and they're great players, but I just don't think they have enough star power to stop them, especially with that defense. Because if the Jazz are able to slow the Nuggets down to 80 points, the Clippers are going to be much, much more ruthless.
For sure. And I think that goes along the lines with having a really good center with like Rudy Gobert, especially. And I think in this case, for me, I think the series will really rely on the playmaking ability of, Nikola Jokic at this point. Because, I mean, let's be real. The Clippers center game, don't get me wrong, Montrezl Harrell, he's pretty good. He's not great, though. Okay, he's not there yet. And I think that goes along with his height, just being like 6'9" for a center. They're playing a little bit small ballish at that point. Don't get me wrong, we can't doubt Kawhi, especially when it comes to a 2-minute drill at that point. Paul George does come into question, but with those two guys just locking up the guards, Jamal Murray's going to have a very tough time. And it's going to really rely on either Jokic producing crazy numbers on offense or being more of a playmaker and getting these bench guys some real numbers, like a Michael Porter Jr., for example. If you get that guy averaging 15 a game in this series, I won't be surprised if they can, get the dub in the long run. Along those lines, who would have the series, in your thoughts, Matt?
Clippers.
How many games?
I hate to say it, but Clippers in 5.
Clippers. Dang. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Kevin, you getting the same vibes over here?
See, I don't know. I think the biggest thing the Nuggets have going for them, which you mentioned earlier, their depth. I think if they can, they're going to have a tough time with their starting lineups against Kawhi, period. Kawhi is going to shoot over them regularly, as he does, and as we've seen him do this entire series. Make those 12, 15-foot shots over a 7-foot guy like it's nothing. Whatever. You gotta accept that and move on. And I think the way that the Nuggets can do that is really, really go hard with their bench. If they can outscore the Clippers bench every time they're out on the court, then that's gonna way compensate for whatever Kawhi is doing. Will that win the series for them? I don't know. They gotta have a lot of things go right, and they gotta not have a good Paul George game for the series. I think as soon as Paul George is playing like he did when he scored 30-plus points the other day, I think then that's just an L for them. Yeah, as soon as you have Kawhi and Paul George firing in all cylinders, you're going to lose. And but I think if you can shut Paul George down, every game they have a genuine good chance at winning.
See, that's what concerns me is when you mentioned the bench and when you mentioned depth, I think the Clippers have the best depth in the entire league because you have Lou Williams coming off the bench. You have, I know we give like Montrezl Harrell, like he can switch between starting and bench. Marquise Morris isn't exactly the best player in the world, but he's totally fine as a bench player. Like, the fact of the matter is the Clippers are going to outscore the Nuggets every single time when it comes to the bench because you have Lou Williams. And that's what's probably getting me the most is, yeah, the Nuggets do have depth, but I don't think it's enough. I don't think it's enough to really put up a strong fight against the Clippers.
No, that's fair. I mean, the thing is, I feel like Denver has physically better depth in terms of like they have a lot of more resources than the Clippers. But I guess in terms of reliability, which is I'm guessing going along your point, you have someone like a Lou Will or Montrezl Harrell that, in case of a shitty Paul George game, and we saw that Lou Will had dropped like 35 points in that game against the Dallas Mavericks. Having the guys I think it comes down to when you have a veteran bench versus guys who are just going into their second playoffs at this point, or even this first playoffs. Especially with Michael Porter Jr. being actually healthy and getting actual minutes, it really will rely on him producing real numbers and a real plus minus that can actually get this Denver Nuggets a win. So, Kevin, how many games? What's the series is going to be in?
I still think at the end of the day, I think Clippers are going to take it. But I think the Nuggets can get out a couple wins, especially if Paul George isn't playing. So I say Clippers in 6.
Clippers in 6. Gotcha. Yeah, I think the same thing. I feel like Nuggets going to take game 1, and it's going to go 3-1-1. So Nuggets, we tried to love you, but I just feel like this team has gone back to back to back game 7s in the playoffs since last year. Spurs, Portland, and then Jazz. And these are teams that they should be like defeating, right? Like I know they're a really great regular season team, and I hate saying that like inexperience like in the playoffs is really showing for this team in terms of it's not the Jokic. It was Murray last year a little bit just in terms of inconsistency. He did really stepped up a lot, but you can tell that this team has not seen playoff ball, and it's kind of weird because it's not a playoff environment either. So, I know we get the artificial sounds and stuff, but we'll talk about it later. But when you hear that like Toronto Raptors arena go nuts, like it's tough to play there. All right, it's nuts. So we'll have to see. But Clippers, you guys got it. You guys sold it on us. So we'll see with that. Moving on to our next series, Game 7 as well. Rockets, Thunder. Do we need to put some respect on Chris Paul's name after Game 6?
Yes.
Done. Done.
Yes.
Okay.
Move on.
Matt, what sold you with Chris Paul?
He's pretty much carrying the team on that game. Chris Paul has always been. I've always had respect for Chris Paul in the sense of leader. Well, not necessarily leadership, but being able to overcome great adversity when it comes to either being in the clutch or just like moving the ball around really, really well. And having that kind of veteran on your team with a bunch of players who maybe not like, I mean, I would probably say more than half are really, really young guys, but like having SGA under Chris Paul, that's what a wonderful future for that team. I'm so excited for the Thunder to beat the Rockets. Let's make it happen.
Dang. Kevin, as a notorious narc, Chris Paul complaining all the time here. Does he change your opinion in terms of how he plays the game, or is he still, Clippers Chris Paul in your mind?
I mean, he's an narc. He will always be a narc in my mind. He'll always be someone I can poke fun at, but I mean, I gotta respect the grind that he's been through to get here, and he has really he's been working at that team tooth and nail, trying to be the leader, trying to bring these young guys up to far in the playoffs, and he's doing it. He's really doing a good job at being that leader and being the clutch player that they need, especially against a team like the Rockets. And I think he brings a lot with experience. Like we said, young guys, we don't want to always put it on them to be like, oh, you don't have playoff experience, so you're not going to be good. That's not always the case, but I think if you have someone who's been to the playoffs regularly, who's been on successful teams regularly for a long time, I think that really, really adds a lot to your team. And I think that's something you got to respect. You got to respect. I think at the beginning of the season, I would never have even thought that OKC would have been in a 7th or 8th seed, let alone playing the Rockets right now in the playoffs to Game 7. Like I think he is a main part of that happening. So yeah, I gotta give him some respect, even though I'll trash on him forever.
For sure, and I think you're right. You hit it right on the nail when it came to us disrespecting the OKC Thunder right at the beginning of the season, just because they done Russell Westbrook, right? It's their best player. They lost Paul George. Yeah, they got these assets, but we thought this team's going to be so bad. There's no way they can make the playoffs this season, and they just proved us wrong. And because we all thought Chris Paul is going to get traded probably halfway through the season because they don't want that contract, right? Along those lines, like even like I feel like we don't give a lot of respect to Danilo Gallinari. That guy's been balling out for that team. Like
I love him.
And I feel like he's going to be gone after this season because he wants his money. The rumor is to match your favorite team, the Miami Heat. They'll probably get Chris Paul. They'll probably get the rest of the 160 players in the league as well.
Maybe we get Giannis.
We got an interesting player, though, for OKC. I think I'm saying this wrong, but Luguentz Dort. I don't know if you guys heard of this man, but known as the Harden Stopper. This man is caking, in my opinion. But he's got real size to where he can stay in front of James Harden. He can take the hits and stuff like that. For you, I don't know if you guys have heard, Matt. I'm assuming no. Kevin, I don't know if you saw the series at all, but do you think that James Harden can shake off this kind of guy in a way a nobody? I haven't heard this guy until this season. Is this easy for James Harden to get past in terms of Game 7?
Yes. I will put a lot of respect towards Dort. I think he has really impressed me lately, especially. And I think he has stopped Harden from going to the line as much as he's used to. Like we've seen Harden put up games where he has 20 points in free throws alone. And in this series, the highest game he's had of free throws is 15, and he only made 11 of them. Otherwise, he's averaging around 7 free throws a game, which is for him when he gets a lot of his points from there. But the thing with Harden is he doesn't need to go down the paint and have someone stop him. He can just make those threes. He's still averaging over 30 points a game in this series. He's still making plays. He's still making baskets. As good as Dort can be to stop him in the lane and just take him, he isn't stopping him from draining those clutch shots, draining those 30-foot baskets. Like, I think Harden can still pull out a win in Game 7, even with good defense.
No, that's fair. I mean, he's a beard. You can't stop that. Fear the beard at that point. So I know we got Matt's opinion. He has no Rockets love at all in his heart. Kevin, who do you have Game 7?
I think it's going to be a close one. I think Rockets. I got to go with my boys. But I wouldn't see if it even goes to OT.
Okay, that'd be an awesome finish, to be honest.
I kind of want it.
No, let's be real. I guess going along the lines with just James Harden, are we really confident in this small ball team? It's going to Game 7 against, I would probably say, a traditional OKC team. I know they run 3 guards, but they still have a big man. Are we still confident moving forward that a small ball team can win a title?
No.
I
mean, okay, so I think a small ball team can definitely win a title. I don't think this team is going to win a title. I think the biggest thing is that people are finally figuring out how to play against James Harden. I think that's why their record has been slowly going down. I think that's why OKC is actually almost has a step ahead of them right now, and why they're keeping up with them is because you have somebody like Russell Westbrook who is getting up there in age, and while I love watching him play, he changed, and like, again, not as significantly as LeBron, but he changed his game a decent amount. You see him more in the paint than normal, but he's not going to be able to shoot the ball. We saw that last year in the playoffs. The man can't shoot. Not to mention that James Harden's entire game is essentially get fouled, go to the free throw line, shoot a ton of free throws. Yeah, he has the range, but if you can stop him from doing one thing and force him to do another, and I'm not saying that like he's bad at the other thing. I'm not saying like it's foul or nothing. It's more so that if you can stop him from doing one thing and force him from doing the other, you pretty much have figured out the Houston Rockets secret, and that's that if you have solid defenders, they're done.
I don't know if you guys are hearing it. I'm getting it through my ears, but let me just say what I'm hearing right now. Delusional. Ladies and gentlemen, delusional. This man has just said that James Harden has been figured out. Impossible. Are you serious? Are you serious right now? James Harden figured out?
I'm very serious. Absolutely.
Oh, man. It'd be a real shame when Chris Paul has to Rocco your ass.
Look, you know what? Like, all power to James Harden for literally discovering a new way to play basketball. Like, all power to him. But, like, there is no perfect system. If there was a perfect system, then everybody would be doing it. James Harden, it was only a matter of time before people figured out how to defend it. Here we are. And you know what? I remember when people said that they could never defend LeBron, and yet some people can figure it out. I remember when people said that they couldn't figure out how to defend Steph Curry, and they figured it out. James Harden is not some godly child who can completely break the game. He's done a great job, and his way of playing has obviously proven successful. I just don't think it's going to last forever, and I think that OKC has figured it out.
All right, so we just have Alex Jones.
OKC's got this.
Alex Jones in the building here, ladies and gentlemen. Conspiracy theorist, delusional. I can't believe you just said LeBron James was figured out, and he's in year 17 of his career, and he's about to win another again. So
it's not. That's not at all what I meant. I meant I meant more so that he's not impossible to defend anymore. Because I don't know about you guys, but watching him play on Miami, I thought that there was not a single player in the entire NBA who could take on LeBron. But now it's just like, okay, this guy's got a chance. This guy's got a chance. This guy's got a chance. Like, it's not that I'm not saying that like it's easy. Like, don't get me wrong. It's not easy, but it's possible. He's not freaking Michael Jordan. You know, like he can be defended.
Kevin,
and so
hold my earrings, Kevin. Hold my earrings.
I'm not saying he's a bad player. And I'm not saying that he obviously is one of the best players. He is one of the best players to ever play the game. I will absolutely say that. But it blows my mind. These people are not impossible to defend. You can figure something out and it will work.
I have a question. Would you rank James Harden in your top 5 current active players right now?
No.
We both had this discussion last week, and we both put him in top 5.
Okay.
No,
but since you weren't here, what is your top 5?
Top 5 has to be Giannis at number 1. Oh my God, that's hard, man. Number 2, I probably have to say maybe Anthony Davis or LeBron. It's one of those two, honestly.
Okay.
Kawhi number 3.
Okay.
Luka number 4. Number 5, I'd probably have to say Chef Curry.
Oh, we didn't.
Yeah, we didn't put Steph Curry. We didn't put Kevin Durant either. I mean, I just feel like James Harden's the most better scorer at this point. He's being real.
That's fine, but like if KD played this year, I don't think we would all be questioning whether or not he should be top 5. Because now that you mentioned his name, I definitely think KD is top 5.
I didn't put Steph or KD in my list at all because they didn't play this year. So I'm not even like they're not even.
Overall talent, they definitely are in the top 5. Like, are we okay? Are you being specific? Are you saying top 5 this season or top 5 overall?
Active players.
You're saying,
active players.
So right now.
Well, no, includes Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant's an active player. So
yeah, Kevin Durant number 5, definitely. Okay. There's no way that he's not top 5.
Right. No, that's fair. I mean, I just don't think Steph Curry is as good as we think. Don't get me wrong, he's revolutionary. That's not what I'm discussing here, but
Yeah,
at this point, I would say even Damian Lillard is almost on par with Steph Curry in terms of skill
that's
set.
true. That's
Like,
very true. I
um,
might actually put them both I would honestly say like maybe 6A, 6B or like 7A, 7B for those two players.
and that's fair because I think because we've seen this Warriors team so many times and how it hasn't really changed and realistically has probably one of the best shooting teams in all of history, like with Klay Thompson, there's a good
Mhm.
supporting cast for them. And I know they don't have a good depth, but they had at least consistency with their squad compared to like a Portland team that's changed. The only thing that's been consistent has been the backcourt with CJ and Dame, and the person that we can rely on is Damian Lillard. But that was the whole reason we brought that up was because our question was with how Luca Legend was born. Do we put Luca in the top five? For me, yes, we do because now we see him in the playoffs and to see what he's done. Yes, he didn't make it, but the numbers he put up was unreal, and I think he can get even higher than four pretty easily. I want to see him in a real playoff environment once we get to better conditions. Obviously, I know it's not. He doesn't get under the pressure of fans because he's a grown man in a 21-year-old's body. Um, but Kevin, I think we both agreed that at least on our end, I'm not saying there's no right or wrong in this, but I think James Harden was the thing that came into question was Anthony Davis was almost a 2 for you, so that's why we were really concerned at some point. But do you care to
No, that's
defend
fair.
yourself?
The reason why I put Anthony Davis that high up is because Uh, I mean, there's definitely a little bit of bias. I will absolutely admit that there's definitely a little bit of bias when it comes to him. I would probably say LeBron James is either number two or number three, and Kawhi is either number two or number three. Um, Anthony Davis may be number five or number six, but I just it's hard for me not to say he's top five after carrying the Pelicans to the playoffs almost every single year. And while they don't make it far, he's still carrying the Pelicans, a bad Pelicans team, mind you, to the playoffs every single year. Like he is he's unquestionably great. And we've seen that because now he shoots threes. He doesn't just go into the paint. He isn't just a great defender. He can shoot the ball now. Like, I guess what more does he have to do to really prove that he's a great player? Like, win more games in the playoffs? Like, I don't know. I can understand the argument for him not being top five, but I don't know about questioning whether or not he deserves it because he sure does, in my opinion.
No, for sure. So then you totally agree Anthony Davis over Luka Doncic at this moment.
No, I said Luca number four.
Hey, you just said AD could have been 2 at some point. I'm just saying.
No, you're right. I know, but I redacted that statement. I redacted that statement for sure.
It's too late, and we don't know how to edit here, so that's set in stone at this point.
Fuck.
um, but anyways, speaking of Anthony Davis and LeBron, look, Lakers are going to have to face OKC or Rockets. By the way, I think Rockets just got a pure bias because Texas gang and Dallas is gone and San Antonio's gone. So I got to go for the Rockets. Hopefully they're not like the Astros and cheat their way, but we'll
That'd
see.
be rough.
But with the potential being Lakers, OKC, or Lakers, Rockets, do we think this is an easy ride, Kevin, for the Lakers to get to the Western Conference Finals?
I mean, I'm the resident biased Lakers fan, but trying to put my bias aside a little bit, I think still both those teams, the Lakers would fare well against, from my perspective at least. I think they can shut down Harden on the Rockets, and I don't think Chris Paul and the young guys on OKC have enough strength to beat LeBron and AD. I don't see it.
No, that's fair. Matt, do you think that OKC has a real chance against this Lakers team in terms of being a real threat? I guess we could say.
I would have to agree with Kevin. I think Lakers beat both of those teams, the Rockets and OKC. The thing with OKC, again, is I don't know if they have enough, like Kevin said, enough power to necessarily beat LeBron. I do think they have better depth than the Lakers, so maybe they get a foot up here and there, but with the amount of minutes that LeBron and AD have been playing, it's kind of like, when are they, like they would have to score in unimaginable amounts when LeBron and AD aren't on the court. And that's just so much planning, and they don't have the skill set in order to beat LeBron and Anthony Davis. I even question to say the Lakers, because we all know that it's Anthony Davis and LeBron. They are the Lakers. There really isn't anybody else. The Rockets, sure, the Rockets have a chance to go, I guess, far, if I want to say. Like, they could push a game 7, maybe. It's just, again, it's LeBron and Anthony Davis, and James Harden is a huge choker in the playoffs. So is Russell Westbrook too. So you have two of the biggest chokers in the fucking league on the same team. So we'll see how that works.
Hey man, don't forget Chris Paul and all this. All right, it's just bound for failure for any of
No,
these.
you're right. You're right. Chris Paul chokes. He chokes.
Do we agree that we need to get the broomsticks out? Is this a sweep for the Lakers?
I don't know. I think whichever team will get a win, maybe 2, but I think, again, regardless of which team, it's max 6 games, max.
I'd agree with Kevin on that one. I don't think there's a sweep at all. I think they've got to get a win. Like, first off, if OKC beats the Rockets, they are now the underdogs. So now you have this mental set in your head, like the world is on our side. Like, they want us to beat the Lakers. Like, let's prove that we can actually do something with this team. So not only do you have players that are, to say the least, capable to make it this far, but now you have like all of this momentum going forward. So if OKC beats the Rockets, I think they can at least win a game or 2 against the Lakers. But that's really it. I can't see either team really going far against them.
That's fair. And I just like to say that the last Lakers teams to win with the duo were Kobe and Gasol and Kobe and Shaq. So just saying, we got another duo.
Nice.
Let's just see what happens. When your third best player is Derek Fisher and then you have Dwight Howard on the other one, it's basically the same at that point. Let's be real.
No, you're right.
Lastly, real quick, we'll talk about Matt's favorite team, the Boston Celtics versus the Toronto Raptors. Up 2-0. Very confident about this Boston team. It's really changed my mind. I think this is their optimal chance to actually get to the finals, just in terms of I guess you can say there's no home court advantage, and this Boston team doesn't care about that compared to the other teams that really do need it, who don't have that experience of winning in the playoffs for so long. No Gordon Hayward. He went back home to go have another child. I mean, child's on the way. He's not creating another child. But
see a male seahorse? Jesus.
You see Jason Tatum, Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown, Kemba Walker, even Tice and Enes Kanter. This team's working out like crazy well. I know we've had our ups and downs with discussing, especially with terms of Jason Tatum's performance, really just picking up in the second half. Do we think this is a sweep, Matt? Is this done for the Toronto Raptors?
It's hard for me to say that it's going to be a sweep just because the Toronto Raptors have been so good. It's just like they probably have gotten something off. I'm sure they'll win a couple games, but I would like to say I told everybody. Yeah, I told you. The Celtics are fire. I knew that they would be great after Kyrie Irving left. It really goes to show how important team chemistry is, and Jason Tatum is fire. Marcus Smart is a very underrated player in my opinion. Jaylen Brown's awesome. Like, Tice is doing well. Are you what? these guys have such good chemistry together, and it's proving it more and more and more. This is like an all-around great team because you have two players on that team that are like not Kawhi Leonard, but maybe like a few steps under him, if you know what I mean, like that kind of game where you have Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, who are both just like incredibly talented players who are, you know, Jaylen Brown balling out for the money that he got, you know, Jason Tatum proving that he is better than he was last year. Kemba helping both of them out. He's a fantastic leader. I think Kemba's just a wonderful presence in their locker room, and not just that, but just on the court too. Like this team's awesome. This team's amazing. I could definitely see them beating Toronto. I was a little nervous about it, I'm not gonna lie, but I love this team. I love the Celtics. I love this Celtics team. They're fantastic. I told you all. Move on. Just accept it.
For sure. And lastly, Kevin, what adjustments do the Raptors have to do to stay relevant in this series?
It's tough because, like this game two, I think game one was ugly. Like game one was ugly. The Celtics took advantage of that and had no problem just handling the Raptors pretty easily. Game two was a lot closer. Game two was only a 3-point game at the end. The Raptors had 5 people all over 15 points, and all were playing pretty well. Serge, Lowry, Van Vliet, OG Anunoby. Ooh, he's been killing it. Siakam, all of them had over 15 points. So I think they have the tools to do it. They just need to have what the Celtics do, kind of, and have one person score just a little more. Just you need like one person to have a 30-point game. Then you got it, easy. And to do that, I think the biggest thing is they got to get their 3-pointers up. In a game like this, Marcus Smart is a great defender. You gotta go against him and shoot from the perimeter a little bit more. They shot 40 3-pointers and only made 11 of them this last game. Not great. I think they drive so much. They just get all their points in the paint almost. I think against the Celtics team, that's almost exactly not what you want to do. And the Raptors are really good at that, but I think they got to kind of shift how they play offensively a little bit.
Yeah, and I think it goes along the lines of what you're saying. You need a player to start dominating for this team rather than just be a little bit. You know, we don't need this team for a championship caliber team. We don't need them to be good. We need them to be great. And there's no sense of leadership yet on that team in terms of what we have at Kawhi. Maybe Kawhi wasn't as vocal. I know we have Kyle Lowry, but the guy's kind of old enough where he doesn't perform as consistent as we need him to. And the guy we need consistency from is Spicy P. Like, compared to last year, how scary and how realistically he was more of an X factor. We need that guy to really step up to make this a really interesting series. So far, it's been pretty lackluster from his end. I know I'm going to be the dad, but I know he's trying his best, guys. But just give him another shot. But he's got this. He really has to step up. And they're a really tall team. Gasol, Serge, Spicy P, OG. Like, this is team long. This is what Philly had to do, and they just fucked it up. So
yeah, definitely.
I'm really excited for these playoffs, especially for the next round to come up. With that, let's bring it back, boys. The courtroom. Let's get it.